Welcome to the Freedom Founder Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Duggar. Now, when you were younger, were you involved in sports? If so, raise your hand. Now, if you're in your car, you raised your hand. Good for you, but we didn't see that. So comment on this and let us know. You probably don't realize it, but you have a lot of lessons learned from the time that you were working in those sports and those activities as a child. And my guest today has been involved with things more in the longer term time frame than maybe some. I was involved in soccer until I was in third grade and some other things, but is taking those lessons learned and really applying those into business and life and helping others. So I want to welcome Aaron Woolf to the show today. Thank
Thank
you,
you. Glad to
Aaron.
be here. Glad to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Grateful for you to join us. And, I like to start the show just kind of talking a little bit about your background and finding out that entrepreneurial path a little bit. But what were you doing as you got into, actually, let's step back a little further. What type of sports were you involved in your youth and
The,
maybe
the
even
main
currently?
sport, the main sport that I was involved in is Taekwondo. I started Taekwondo
Okay.
when I was 6 years old, and just from then, when I started Taekwondo, I learned at a young age the value of a work ethic, the value of taking care of your body awareness, how to stretch and how to move the body. And when I started Taekwondo when I was 6, up till now, I've been kicking for almost as long as I've been walking. So I have a real close relationship with the sport Taekwondo, the art Taekwondo, and my body. I did wrestle in high school, and then I lift weights. I had to be in a weight class for wrestling and Taekwondo. And once I was done competing with those, I thought, I've been losing weight for so many years. Now I'm going to try to gain weight. Turns out gaining weight for me is not as easy as it is for a lot of people. But yeah, those are the
Sure.
things I do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Actually, I have a sibling who he had decided he was going to try to gain weight. And so he decided he was going to do a gallon of milk every day for a period of time while he was also doing his bodybuilding, weightlifting, and activity. So different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely not something I could do. But going back to that, then, so as you were trying to work on increasing your size, that did lead to a discovery in regards to clothing. Now, just if you could talk about what were you doing at the time, as far as a career goes, when you were starting to make that discovery that there was a lack in the market for, or a need in the market for additional options for men who are increasing in size in their shoulder and their breadth, but then still had that trim waistline. So
Yeah.
what were you doing as far as that career goes at that time? And talk a little
Well,
bit about that discovery.
I had a small construction company. Um, I'll backtrack a little bit. In
Yeah.
2014 is when I quit my corporate job. I always had an entrepreneurial mindset. Was never happy working for somebody else. Wasn't happy making somebody else rich while I was selling my life at, an hour at a time. So I quit my job and I started in construction because it was something I knew I could do pretty much right away to pay the bills while I figure out what I actually want to do when I grow up. And I was in my 30s then. Uh, so I was in construction and wanted a business that I could scale a lot easier. I wanted something online because I'd been researching some things, and this kind of brings up one of the analogies that I have with the lessons that I learned in Taekwondo and how I apply that to my life. It's called spotting opportunities. In Taekwondo, when you're in a match, when you're fighting, especially against high level competition, the opportunities are rare and they come and go very quickly. If you're not trained and watching for the opportunities to score a point, it's going to go and you'll miss it. So when you see an opportunity, you have to take advantage of it as it comes up and be ready to go. Uh, so when I started lifting weights and getting that shape you're talking about, I always have fairly broad shoulders naturally, but when I lift weights, my shoulders are for some reason they grow better than any other body part. So my shoulders started getting wider, but my waist, I have a small waist. I wear size 30 pants. So I have that V shape, and when you are shaped like that and you go to any men's clothing store, especially the big ones at the mall, and you put on a shirt, you have to buy it big enough to fit your shoulders. And then it goes pretty much straight down from your shoulders, and it's real baggy and sloppy around the waist. It defeats the purpose of working out and trying to get that athletic shape because it hides it under just a sloppy mess of fabric.
Yep.
So I was frustrated, and so I just started talking to guys that I worked out with first and saying, "Where do you get dress shirts at? Do you wear dress shirts?" And most of the guys would say the same thing that I had found out, that there's nothing out there to fit guys that have a muscular or athletic physique. So I kind of thought might be an opportunity there. So I started talking to more people, started looking online for companies that would do that. And I actually,
Mhm.
at this point, I was still just trying to find a shirt to fit me. So I ordered some shirts from some of these other companies that claimed to make dress shirts specifically for athletic men, and wasn't really happy with anything. It just seemed like they were taking a regular dress shirt and kind of putting a few stitches here and there and trying to take it in, and just trying to making shortcuts. So I ended up making a business plan. And I don't know how to even use a sewing machine, so I had to learn everything that I could about the fashion world, and started listening to fashion based podcasts, and ended up finding a fashion designer that I started working with, and we ended up going to some gyms and measuring guys at in between sets, and during before and after their workout, and coming up with a pattern to fit that shape of guy. And then I fast
Yeah.
forward, make it long story short, I ended up starting the business.
Okay. So did you ever get in front of a sewing machine, do a little bit of
A
work at the
couple
machine
times.
yourself?
A couple times, yeah,
All
but
right.
I'm never gonna be the person to be a professional tailor. I'm not I'm not that good.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great example of collaboration and teamwork. Essentially, that's
Yeah,
needed when you're working in a business that you don't have certain skill sets that, or the skill set you have isn't at the level that somebody else has, and you want it to be done with excellence.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't do everything, and if you try to do everything, you might be an expert at one of the things, but you're not gonna be an expert at everything. So you have to rely on some other people, and get some good people where you need them.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to the construction comment, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that Arnold Schwarzenegger had also started working in construction during the day, doing some bodybuilding, weightlifting, and taking some acting lessons. Construction must be a good place for bodybuilders to work in.
Yeah, it's we move our bodies. That's what we like to do. So yeah, if we can carry some 2x10s or 2x12s and stack of them around in the summer, that's it's a good way to lose some fat and some body moisture if you're trying to prepare for a show
Yep.
or something like that.
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. With regards to that, yeah, moving your body, I think that's something that you described that you did and do with Taekwondo quite a bit. Now,
Yeah.
with regards to the sports lessons, I just wanted to ask, what's something you mentioned, like working through adversity as something that you find as a lesson or a key lesson in sports.
Yep.
Can you?
Yeah, working through adversity is one of the other lessons that I learned. And let me give a little bit of background just in
Yeah.
general first. As I was going through Taekwondo from the time I was 6, getting more advanced into my black belt, I always heard different instructors say, uh, this is a lesson you're gonna use later in your life. But it was never really spelled out how I would use that lesson. And I think a lot of people, and it doesn't have to be Taekwondo, any sport that you're in has lessons. And a lot of people, unfortunately, miss those lessons, or aren't able to apply them to other areas of their life. So that's what I really want to help people do, is to you think back at that time they played football or baseball or swimming or gymnastics, whatever it might be. And the lessons are pretty much, when you boil them down to the basic level, they're all the same types of lessons. You learn the same things. It's just how they present themselves differently in different sports. So, yeah, coming back to working through adversity, it's one of the more obvious ones, especially with Taekwondo. There's a lot of opportunities for adversity. The example I like to give is when you're in a match and you get kicked in the face. That's an immediate presentation of adversity right there, because I don't know if you've ever been hit pretty hard in the face or in the nose, or if anybody hasn't experienced that, but you get kind of dizzy. You start to see stars. Your eyes might water, and you get disoriented. But if you're in a match, you can't just quit. You're there to do a job. You're there to win. And so when you get kicked in the face, you got that adversity to work through, and you have to clear your mind right away, not get sidetracked, not get knocked off the tracks, and you have to keep going forward. And if your eyes are blurry and you can't see, you got to figure it out. You got to keep moving. How that
Yeah.
applies to life, there's a specific story I like to tell. When I started my clothing company, I had planned on launching my company at a event called. It's funny you mentioned Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's called the Arnold Sports and Fitness Expo. It's in Columbus, Ohio. It's a bodybuilding show, but it's also gymnastics and martial arts and strongman competition. There's more athletes that compete at the Arnold than there are at the Summer Olympics. So it's a huge, huge event. A couple 100,000 people go through that convention center through the weekend, and they have a big vendor expo. And I wanted to launch my company at a booth at that vendor expo. So I worked with my manufacturer, worked with my fashion designer, got all my shirts manufactured, got inventory shipped to my house, got the hotel room. I purchased the booth. I got the banners and everything for the booth. Whole lot of preparing for this show, and I was so excited, riding high on adrenaline, ready to launch my company to the world. And the date of this Arnold was March 2020. Now, if you remember what was going on in March of 2020, and it was the first weekend in March too. So, COVID, we knew about COVID, but nothing had been shut down yet. That weekend was the first weekend that things started shutting down. So I was in Columbus. I was able to. There's a gym down there next to the convention center that it's like a big event at the gym the night before the expo starts, where all the big name bodybuilders and some other there's some movie stars that go there. It's just a really fun time, and I was able to get in with the gym and set up a small booth in the corner of the gym and have like a little pre-sale before the big expo. And that night it was a Thursday night, and I'll never forget when they announced that the expo was going to be completely canceled. The energy in that room in the gym just went from 10 to 1, maybe even 0. Everybody was like just shocked, and I was shocked. And it was like the analogy, it was like getting hit in the face or you're punched in the gut. It was jarring, felt a little dizzy,
Yeah.
and I wasn't sure what I was going to do because I had put so much stock into this big launch, and getting my brand out there in front of as many people as we're going to go through there. So I knew I couldn't just pack up and go home. I knew I couldn't quit. I had too much invested in this already. So I decided I'm already in Columbus. Everybody else is already still in Columbus now because they waited till the day before the show to cancel it. So I just said, yeah, I'm gonna walk around the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, walk around the convention center, walk around this whole area in Columbus, and just look for people and just talk to them. Just walk up and talk to them, which isn't natural for me. I'm normally a somewhat of an introvert. I'm not a overt extrovert like some people, but it didn't feel weird because I believe in my product. I'm passionate about it. So I was just walking up and just starting conversations with people, and made a lot of good contacts. Met some pro bodybuilders that liked my shirts, and they started wearing some of my stuff and posting on their Instagram. So yeah, I was able to take uh, the figurative kick in the face and turn it around and still make a positive thing out of it. So I was
Yeah.
really glad I learned that lesson back when I was younger and was able to apply it to that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. What a kick in the face that
Oh,
was. Oh
yeah,
man. Not at all something that any of us would ever have anticipated occurring at
right.
all.
Yeah, if you go back to the mindset before
Yeah.
COVID, it's nobody would have anticipated something what
No.
happening, but yeah, it was
No.
nuts.
But also a great way to work through it and not just throwing in the towel, going back to your hotel and saying, okay, I guess I've got to pack up, but putting yourself out there with that product that you believed in and still believe in, but going and talking with people, which isn't something like you said that you naturally do, but with that belief in the product, getting those connections with people that would start helping to get that product out there, get the word out there, and to work through that adversity. I like
Yeah,
that.
it's funny. There was one day, Saturday or Sunday, that I had my daughter with me. I believe she was 13 or 14 at the time,
Yep.
and of course, dad's always embarrassing. So every time I would walk up to somebody and start talking, she would veer off and go the other way and kind of roll her eyes, and she's like, "Oh, he's doing it again." And so it was kind of fun talking to people, but it was also kind of fun embarrassing her too.
Had double opportunity there, but also a great way to be a good example in the moment, even if it was embarrassing in the moment too.
Yeah, hopefully she'll
But
remember that someday if something like that happens to her, and she'll remember what her dad did, and maybe be
yeah,
able to pull from that.
absolutely. Yes, definitely. I think that we don't always realize it in the moment how powerful our example is for the kids in our family and our life, and our children especially. So
Yeah.
putting yourself out there, that's a big example. So great work. Yeah, you also mentioned that in another lesson, everything is your fault. Now, that one, I don't quite understand what you mean by that. So I'd love to hear the story behind that and how you
Yeah,
apply that in business and life.
this one is kind of a somewhat controversial one. People don't like to hear that it's their fault, and what I mean by that is everything that's going on in your life, every situation, whether it's business, financial, relationship wise, you have to understand that it's your fault. Because if a lot of people like to make excuses and say, this happened because of this external circumstance, or somebody else did something to me, and that makes you feel good short term, because it it gets the responsibility off of you, and you don't feel guilty, or you don't feel the need to uh, have to do something about it to fix it. But that's not helpful. That's not constructive. If something that happens to you is somebody else's fault, then you have to rely on them at least somewhat for the solution. Now, when I tell somebody it's your fault, no matter what it is, that's me in my own way, which may be kind of abrasive, but that's me telling you you have the power to fix it. Figure out why it's your fault. That way, only you can fix it, and that's empowering. That's a good
Mhm.
thing. When you first tell somebody it's your fault, it doesn't come across that way, and I understand that. I know it can be kind of a jarring thing to have somebody tell you it's your fault, but to me that's good, because that means you have the power to fix it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
you're projecting instead. Otherwise, you're projecting the responsibility on others, and now it's out of your control. But when you realize and can take on that responsibility, like you said, it's empowering, and gives you that opportunity to make that correction and to find a solution.
right. Yeah, and the lesson I pull from in Taekwondo is, again, if you're in a match, it's an individual sport. It's just you and the other guy. So anything that happens, it's my fault. Whether I score and make a great kick, or if I am a little slow to react and get kicked in the face, that's all my fault. Even with the preparation, there's coaches involved, and your training partners, but still, whatever it is, even if if your coach isn't the right coach, it's my fault for sticking with him. It all
Mhm.
comes back to me. Whether I like it or not, it's always my fault, and that's really served me well in the other areas of my life, and it's still something that's it's not easy for me to tell myself that sometimes. It is tempting to say, well, that's not my fault. I didn't do that. Somebody else did that, but that's not constructive at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I told you this before, but when I'm listening to you tell these stories and examples and these specific points that are fairly simple in the sense of just breaking it down to one summary point and then breaking it out further from that, you should write a book, man.
Well, it's funny. I listened to one of your other episodes. I
Yeah.
forget what her name was. The bookprofessor.com. I'll give her a little
Yes.
plug.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna get a hold of her and maybe
Nancy.
chat and
Nancy
see about that.
Erickson.
Nancy,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think it's a great way to just get that information out there that you are demonstrating that you have an expertise in a format that people can digest it, but it breaks it down in a structure that you can then put it out in different formats and help people in a more broad manner. So I love that.
yeah.
I love that you're looking at the options and seeing how
Well,
you
I
can
already have an
continue.
outline written for a book.
Yeah,
I just don't know. I've never written a book, so I don't
yeah,
know the best way to transfer it from an outline to a book
sure.
that's readable. So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's great. And I think that what you're demonstrating today, again, that expertise in an area that you could definitely be helping others. And I'm really, really excited to see where this goes with you as well.
yeah.
Now, with regards to the athletic wear, is that something that you're finding you are able to then have some efficiencies and streamline now, so you're not having to be in the day-to-day operations, or where are you at with that now?
Somewhat, yeah. I'm still in most of the day to day
Okay.
operations. It's
Yeah.
still, it's growing, and I've outsourced some things, and some things I've brought back in because I
Yeah.
don't have them systemized quite right. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's things are starting to move away from just being me and getting some other things in there. So yeah, it's a slow process, but
Yeah.
it's fun too.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's great to see something that you had started at a time when there was the time of adversity, but being able to then continue to expand it from there and see it grow and see people enjoy the product. And it's a real solution, not just for yourself, but that you saw that could be of value to others, which is a lesson that you've already mentioned, but taking advantage of those opportunities that you see in front of you. So
Yeah,
in regards
and
to that, yeah, do you have to I'd love to hear if you have more to elaborate on that spotting and taking advantage of opportunities.
Yeah, well, we kind of started hitting on it when we started talking about starting a business, and
Yeah.
that's another lesson that I learned. It just we call it personal growth or personal development in Taekwondo. When you first start out, you're a white belt, first time in the Taekwondo school. You don't know how to do anything. You don't know
Yep.
the routines, how to bow, how to tie your belt, how to throw a kick. So when you first start out, it's kind of awkward, and you're kind of trying to find your way through. Maybe you'll get hurt. It happens sometimes, and because you just don't know what's going on. So it can be kind of nerve wracking. And in the weight room too, when you first start working out, you don't know what the equipment is. You don't know how to do certain lifts. You might hurt yourself. You might have a lot of setbacks. Um, but once you start getting into it, once you start learning a kick or two, or learn how to tie your belt in Taekwondo, then you start to gain a little bit of confidence, and then you build on that confidence to conquer the next thing. Maybe you start sparring a little bit and getting used to squaring up against somebody, and then you build on confidence. And then you get your yellow belt and get more confidence. And it builds all the way up through to your black belt and beyond. Business is the same way. When I started my clothing company, I had no idea how to do anything. Like I said, I didn't know how to use a sewing machine. So it was clunky. I didn't know how to how I needed to do my online marketing. Had to figure out how to build a website. Had to figure out how to find a manufacturer to manufacture the shirts. So it was the same thing. It's the beginning is exciting. Sometimes it can be exciting, but it can also be nerve wracking, and you need to be able to build your confidence and find the little wins along the way and build upon those, and then you progress through all your belts, or just make your business bigger.
Yeah, no, I really definitely like that perspective. I think that we see examples of people on the back end of their journey when they've already achieved all of those wins along the way, as well as some challenges or failures along the way, but lessons learned. And sometimes we just want to achieve that. That's what we're going for. And so we don't think about what we have to do to get there. And to get to that point, you have to go through some challenges. You have to learn some things to then be able to expand to that next level. I
Yeah.
sometimes relate it to video games. Not that I play now, but when I was younger, I played Mario. Just go back to really young. You can't go to that next level until you beat this level. So you have
Yep.
to be able to have that success with what you're doing now before you're able to then move on to the next step. It's not generally an overnight experience.
Right. It's the saying. It takes 5 years to become an overnight success. It's
Yeah,
people see the the end result, but they don't see all the work and the blood, sweat, and tears that comes with that.
exactly. Exactly. Now, I'd like to ask a question I like to ask all of my guests is if you were to be handed $1 million today, no restrictions on that, how would you use that to invest in your business or another endeavor, and why?
I would probably break it up into roughly thirds. I would invest in my clothing business. What I would do with
Mhm.
that is expand my product lines. Right now, I have shirts, and that's it. Because everything is custom. I don't just find a pair of pants that that's out there and slap my brand on it and sell it, which is what a lot of
Yep.
clothing companies do. Everything has to be custom. So there's a lot of time and money spent developing. So I would do that. I would expand my product line. I would take the other third and invest in real estate. There's no better vehicle to not just save your money, but grow your money and
Mm.
get a passive income. So I would definitely put some into real estate. And the last chunk, I would start some sort of uh, either donate to or start my own charity, a veterans-based charity, whether it
Yeah.
be for wounded veterans or families of deceased veterans, or helping combat veterans transfer into civilian life when they get out, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that perspective. Just breaking it up into different segments, and also that philanthropical perspective as well. Are you a veteran yourself?
I am, yeah. I was in the Air
Okay.
Force.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your service, Aaron.
Thank you for your taxes.
Yeah. Honestly, I've not heard that response. Is that a common refrain?
I haven't heard much, but somebody said that to me once when I thanked them for their service, and I kind of
Yeah.
grabbed a hold of it, and I liked it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, very respectful work that you have done, and also the company that you've built, and that you're taking your concepts that you've learned through sports and being involved in Taekwondo and other athletic activity, and then expanding that into how those apply to life. I think that's very applicable. And I do hope to see a book one day on my shelf that has you as the author on it.
When I come out with a book, I will send you the first signed copy.
I appreciate that. Now, if anyone wants to reach out to you to find out a little bit more about either the athletic line or the work you're doing as it relates to just coaching and supporting others and the life lessons learned, what's the best way for someone to reach out to you?
The easiest way is my website. It's a clothing line
Okay.
website, atlasmenswear.com.
Okay.
And it's got links there to my social media accounts. The Instagram is Atlas__menswear.
Okay.
And Facebook is Atlas Menswear. And yeah, that's where to find all my stuff.
Okay. Perfect. Atlasmenswear.com. Definitely check out the work that Aaron's doing. Reach out, say, hey, if you're a guy looking for some athletic wear, check it out. That's going to be right up your alley as well. So, Aaron, thank you again for your time. I really appreciated this conversation.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Appreciate it.